Joining me now on News Fighters is someone I've always wanted to have on the show, one of Australia's, I'd say, clearest and most interesting economics journalists, or do I call you an economist for the Guardian Australia?
Economics journalist.
Is that how do you describe your role?
Pushing it. I've got an honours degree in economics, but I think to be an economist, you kind of want to be either lecturing in the thing or actually employed as that. Whereas, I'm a journalist. I'm happy with journalists.
Yes, great Jericho. How did you? So we worked together 10 years ago on a Chaser show. Was it one of the election?
My God, and it is 10 years ago.
2011, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the first hamster wheel season.
Oh God, that was a great show. That was a fantastic show for. And then, what have you been up to since then? How did you land at the Guardian? Before that, you were a Grogs Gamut, the blogger.
Yeah, I was blogging when I was at the public service, and then after I left the I basically left the public service because I got offered the job as a researcher with the Chaser guys. So I thought.
Never a smart move throwing your career in to work with the Chaser. Likely to wind up arrested.
That sounds like a safe career path to tread. So while I was doing that, I was also writing my book on political blogging and everything that was going on at that stage. I was doing a bit of writing for the ABC as well, back when the Drum used to have a website. Mm-hmm. And then when Guardian Australia started, I was very lucky to have Lenore Taylor and Catherine Mersigley in my corner and telling the then editor, Kath Viner, that she really should hire me. And so I basically pitched her a couple of ideas for a sort of a weekly or bi-weekly column, and she bought it, literally.
Right.
That's pretty much how it came about.
Yeah, your column's very enjoyable. You had a great one this week or last week when this comes out, basically arguing that the government's main response to the COVID recession was just to keep house prices rising, which is very relatable. They're up 6.1% in Sydney. Surely we'd have deflation now if it wasn't for house prices.
Yeah, yes, we kind of did have a bit of deflation last year early on, and since then, though, because the government's been pumping so much money into the economy, either through JobKeeper, JobSeeker, and all the others, that it has kind of kept things at least going along. It's not just a slap at the Morrison government. Every government does it. The Rudd government did it during the GFC. It was like, we got to worry about house prices. And the annoying thing is they don't just worry about it when a recession hits. They worry about it all the time. And having slow growing house prices is some kind of evil apparently. But it is quite madness. When we knew that the recession or the pandemic recession was going to happen, I sort of had a look at, housing finance was not doing all that great at that stage. And I was thinking, this could be a little bit of a correction, but the government certainly wasn't going to allow that to happen. And they really went hard. One of the bad things about house prices going up is it kind of does put a little bit of a stop to the thing that it's all foreigners coming in and buying our houses, because that's not what's been happening in the past year.
They can't get in.
They can't get in. So it really has just been a domestic thing, but it also just shows that if governments really want to keep a sector of the economy going, they can do it if they really have a mind to doing it.
Yes, funding the kitchen renos and the bathroom renos as well. But I feel for young people, this might as well be diamond prices. This is so out of reach. The Australia Talks this week reported 65% of Aussies think owning a home isn't really an option for most young people anymore. Surely the government will have to do maybe what New Zealand did and get rid of negative gearing. More supply of houses people can't afford isn't going to help young people, right?
Yeah, look, it's astonishing really how it's happened kind of in our lifetimes, or definitely my lifetime. I'm right in the middle of sort of the Gen X generation, born in 72, came into, finished uni early 90s in the recession. But my wife and I were able to, buy our first townhouse. We had a 2-bedroom townhouse. This was when we were living in Cairns. And then, a decade later, we were able to go to a 3-bedroom when we had our first kid. And then a decade later, almost literally, got our current house, which is a 4-bedroom house in Canberra. And, that's how it's meant to happen. And yet I can absolutely understand millennials and people who are already in their 30s and even beyond going, that's a nice fairy tale there, mate. It ain't happening. I mean, the median price of a house in Sydney is $1.1 million. I mean, that's, it's just astonishing. And, clearly there's no impetus from the government to do anything there. And it's because they have decided, and this is certainly comes from the John Howard School of Politics, that keeping house prices going up keeps people who own houses happy, and there are more of those than people who are actually looking to buy a house at this point in time. And certainly there's more of those who are likely to change their vote than younger people who are looking to buy a house at this moment.
Yeah, right.
And so that's kind of the political calculus behind it all. But where this is all going to come crashing down, of course, is Australia's retirement system is basically set on people owning a house. That's the key. Now, of course, Tim Wilson has hooked on this, saying, "Oh, yes, see, that's how wrong it is, and so we shouldn't be putting our money into super. You should be going into housing," which is a nice way of saying, yes, let's kill superannuation, because he doesn't actually like it ideologically, and he wants to keep housing prices booming. I mean,
and then we'll have to reverse mortgage our houses to pay our bills when we retire, right?
As Paul Keating likes to say, you'll have to eat your house to survive. And I have a few issues with Keating on his treatment of superannuation, anything, but I do love that phrase of having to eat your house. I think that's, and it's. I think you're right. Well, clearly, getting rid of the demand side policies, and whether it's negative gearing or even the sort of the 50% deduction on capital gains tax.
Yep.
But supply of more public housing is certainly a crucial issue. I think the key is having a government that is not fixated on ensuring the prices keep going up and up. And you can always tell, if a government actually worries about something, it actually does something about it. And the fact that they're not, that their worry is about house prices as opposed to housing affordability, you end up with the result. I mean, it's just, if a government doesn't believe in climate change, you get policies like we've got now, where it becomes gas and everything like that. And it comes to the core. Yeah,
and surely doesn't the coalition realise that there's not going to be a next generation of Conservative voters if everyone's living in share houses till they're 60? Like, it seems obvious to me.
Well, I mean, I kind of there's not a lot of long-term thinking from this government, shall we say. They're thinking...
No, really?
I mean, and the other problem is also the kind of banking on the fact that there is still my generation who are in their 40s and 50s who they've now got their house. And it's amazing how you change from someone who thinks, oh, we've got to do something about housing affordability, to suddenly you've got a house and it's like, oh, housing prices. There is that. It's a little bit like migration, where every sort of generation of migrants hates the next generation of migrants that comes in. It's like, you Johnny-come-latelys. And this is why it's always such a real bugger with retirement policies and things like superannuation tax breaks and things, is everyone can see that they're rot and they're bad until they get close to being able to take advantage of them. And then it's like, hang on, you're allowing all those bloody boomers to have got all that. Now you're taking it away just as we're getting there. I did write this a couple years ago in kind of a bit of a throwaway line that, the Australian dream had shifted from wanting to buy your own house to wanting to be able to negative gear a house, and it kind of is that, people were like, no, you're going to take away negative gearing, but I'm now at an age where I could do that. And to the point where there has been a slight rise in the past sort of decade of people who rent and negative gear a place. They buy a investment property even while they're renting.
A lot of people in Sydney rent and own a investment property out of Sydney. I know people like that. Yeah,
crazy. And yet, it's really tough to undo. It's the same with all tax cuts. Once you cut taxes, they never go back up. It's why we're kind of still very much living in the legacy of John Howard and the tax changes and the incentives that he put in to encourage, things like negative gearing, which was a fairly niche thing in the 80s and 90s. There's double the percent of people who negative gear now compared to them. It's gone from sort of 8 to 9% to up 19, 20%. And it's all because of what John Howard did in changing the tax arrangements. So it's
and the 2007 tax cuts they're definitely still paying for.
They were
the Rudd Howard ones.
They were. When I look back over the last 20 years, it strikes me as one amazing that we had a price on carbon and that was working. We got rid of it. And we had a mining boom and we pissed it away.
Yep. A lot of jet skis. A lot of people bought jet skis, Greg. The Australian economy appears to be doing pretty well. Like, do people on the left have to give Morrison and Frydenberg credit? Do we have to actually give credit where it's due here, or is it all a bit of a mirage?
I think you give them credit for it's that kind of case of giving them credit for doing what people on the left were telling them to do, things kind of a job guarantee with the JobKeeper thing, even though they did it in not the greatest way. I think the
a lot of holes in it.
The JobKeeper giving it to the companies to then give to the workers was always going to end up with what we see with Harvey Norman doing quite nicely out of it. I mean, I can kind of give them a pass for that because it was a case of, look, let's just make sure the money's there. Let's get some certainty. Yeah. Certainly you can give them credit for not thinking, oh, no, we've got to watch our budget. But when you talk about how the economy is doing, yes, it's doing really well, but it's kind of like, in a way, saying this guy is running really fast and he's broken the world record. I wonder how Ben Johnson will do once we take him off the steroids, though. It's gotcha. Kind of like, you're running fast and going great because you've swallowed every steroid in the world, And so it is kind of, they've done well in, a lower unemployment rate is good. People working is great. How you actually judge whether or not the economy is actually doing well is tougher because everything is within the caveat of, and we've got interest rates at zero, and the Reserve Bank is saying they're going to be at zero until 2023, 2023, 24. The government is still pumping money in, and yes, that's good. I'm glad that they're doing that because, I don't want a recession and be able to say, see, I told you austerity doesn't work. It's a failure. Yep. And I can now celebrate. I'd much prefer no recession and people doing well, but
people in jobs and stuff. Yep.
Yeah. But a couple of weeks ago, I had a look at the latest quarterly figures, which the new ones aren't out yet, but it was showing that a lot of the recovery in work was very much on the public sector side of things. The private sector.
Those vaccination clinics employ a lot of people. I was there. I had my ID checked 4 times.
Yeah, I mean, healthcare was the pretty much overwhelmingly the biggest increase in sort of full-time jobs.
Wow.
Or main jobs, I guess we should put it in that sense. And a lot of other work was still dragging behind in a lot of other sectors. So it was this case of, as I say, the government has been spending a shitload of money, whether it's in the healthcare sector or in sort of other areas that the kind of the quasi job guarantee of JobKeeper and things like that. And so it's still a little bit tough at this stage to judge how things are. And also, just the fact that the unemployment rate in the last month went from 5.4 to 5.1. I mean, that's kind of an absurd little drop. Generally, it'll go up or down maybe 0.1%, not 0.3, which suggests that there's still a lot of weirdness sort of going on in the economy. So it's great, but you don't want to be sort of thinking, oh, we're all back to normal, because we're nowhere near normal. We're just thankfully have got enough stimulus in place to at least make us feel like things are normal. Also, the big vex thing for the government is what happens when the borders do open again.
Yes.
And a big reason why the unemployment rate is low is because population hasn't grown at all. And that makes it easy to find a job because you haven't got, 40, 50, 60,000, however many extra people you would have expected there to be looking for work as well are not there. And so it is it just does make it a little bit easier to find jobs. I'm not arguing for a zero population growth strategy, but just in the short term, that does make it easier to get work. And once the borders open, we'll have people going outside. Yeah, they'll be spending money that they would have spent here. They're now going on holidays again. And we have people coming in sort of competing for labour. And that's when at least we'll start to getting some close to normal, because when you've got an economy that has got borders shut and there's no movement sort of in or out, that's not a real economy.
So it could be a rough time if the elections this year, say, it could be a rough time after the election for whoever wins it, some tough decisions to make potentially.
Yeah, it's because it's a little bit like, and this is why it's always, why the Liberal Party were able to say, oh, we're stuck with this Labor debt for a decade and everything, is that it is when you stimulate the economy, when you withdraw that money, you're actually slowing the economy. And you can only really do that if you've got faith that the private sector is able to fill the gap. And, I think you'd be a fairly optimistic person to think the government could do that at this stage. I think there's still a lot of, people building houses, but they're only building houses because of the job builder program and things like that. And you can
they're not going on holidays. Everyone's renovating and spending money here.
One of the other kind of interesting things is that apartment building has not increased in any at all. In fact, it's decreased, which to me suggests that investors and those big companies who normally would be building these masses of apartments and have been, as certainly in Sydney in the last sort of 10 years, are not that confident yet to start investing and start building. One, because they have no idea what's going to happen with population and everything, but also because they kind of know that things are still kind of a bit scary. It's okay to maybe build your own house when you've got nothing to lose, but in actually investing and betting your money that you're going to be able to, get people either in this apartment or in this commercial complex is a tougher ask. So that's one thing perhaps to be looking for as well.
And looking at Sydney apartments, modern new apartments, I don't think anyone in Sydney actually wants to live in them. They tend to fall down.
Off the plan, would you?
Yeah. All right, Greg. Thanks for your time. We'll have to leave it there. Where can people find you? What do you want to plug? What are your socials?
Guardian Australia, I'm there every Tuesday, Thursday and Sunday, generally either under the Grogonomics banner or the Graph of the Week, or just go to the front page. Generally, I'm there somewhere. And, of course, at GrogScammit on Twitter. If you wish to hit me up there, I'm pretty much live there. So
brilliant. Fascinating stuff. Thanks for your time. Thanks for coming on Newsfighters. Thanks, Greg.
No worries, Dylan.
Cheers. Thank you.